Hi, I'm Candace, and this is Fitness and Harmony's Reservoir of Space or Love. We need strength inside. We need a place where we can move from. So if you've got nothing, you can't give anything. You really need a reservoir. And so from a psychological term, the reservoir are your thoughts, your memories, the feelings, maybe problems that you've stored up in the subconscious mind. Things that you act out in your behaviors and conditioned responses that you don't even know why. You didn't have to consciously think of it, it just came out. We used to say the Freudian slip, the thing you said that you didn't mean. So the reservoir is the space that you have that has something to give. And we get that from the universal love, from the universal energy. But here's the thing, we can train it. We can train that reservoir through yoga by sensory awareness and training our mind to have certain thoughts all the time. So it's really a wonderful thing. Just one little joke. I write on I have a big whiteboard in the house I had from when I was homeschooling my kids, and I write things on it for myself like, you've got it. You can do this, so that I remind myself to not get overwhelmed. And I wrote, you got this. And my husband erased this and wrote milk. You got milk. So the humor helps too, to have someone in your house that's always working with you. Let's take a seat. We're going to work on the sacrum. So let me get the sacrum, get awareness of the sacrum. The sacrum is the 5 bones at the very base of the spine that fits like an arrowhead in between the 2 hip bones. So when we're seated, the spine is sort of diving down into the pelvis and is locked in place there and held in place by powerful ligaments. But usually when we're seated, we're rocked the pelvis bowl backward, and that rounds and separates the sacrum from the pelvis. That's a bad thing. So make sure that anytime you're seated, that the top rim of the pelvis is pushing forward and your abdominals are pulling upward. That's anytime you're seated, not just in yoga. Let's start out here. Maintaining that, the top rim of the pelvis rocked forward, the abdominals pulling the spine straight up, not rocked backward, but straight up. Relax the arms. Close your eyes. I want to invite you to draw into the healing waters, the reservoir of goodness. Inhale through your nose. Exhale just any way that you want. There is love, there is goodness, there is kindness everywhere. So often we only believe that there is love or goodness in certain places at certain times. As you're breathing in, I want you to dive or surrender deeply into the waters of the reservoir of kindness that is always there. So if you believe you have a reservoir of memories, you have a reservoir of experiences, some of those are good. Some of those are from a time when you truly felt connected, cared for, safe, and supported. Some people call that bliss or flow, when everything just seems to be going without any problem, without any stopping. So as you're inhaling and exhaling now, draw into the deep well, the reservoir of bliss, of quiet, but most of all of connection. So just like we're about to move the body and make micro connections, muscles and tendons and ligaments and bones, make the mind connection to a reservoir of love, kindness, supported, calm silence. So your inhale, exhale out is like you're stirring water, but you're doing it smoothly. If you were doing it fast and you stopped and start, the waters would splash out of the pot. So for now, breathe in, breathe out, keeping the waters calm but flowing. no hiccups, no coughing. Like a slow, easy yawn from mind to body. We're training today your awareness to create a deep well or reservoir of good. 3 slow breaths. Remember, abdominals take a little bit extra training. That's what we're doing today. We're training the awareness. We're tuning in. So train the abdominals now to tune in to support. That means tightness. That could mean pulling in. That could mean almost clenching. Whatever support you need in your low back right now. Exhale and then open your eyes. So I invite you now to slowly come down and onto the back with a strap. Rolling all the way down. When you get down to the floor, as always, remember that the floor is a prop. And right now that floor is teaching you what straight and flat is. So if you have one hip bone that's a little twisted up or over or down, you have one part of your spine or your shoulder blade driving into the floor, that's telling you that there's some unevenness there. So with your knees bent, just rock your knees side to side like you're rolling your pelvis around. So I want to build awareness now about the pelvis and the sacrum and how they come together. The pelvis is essentially 2 plates that, because of the other bones around them, like the sacrum and the pubic bone in the front, make something of a wide bowl. Now bring the knees to center, walk the heels in, bring the arms down to the floor. Now begin rocking that bowl back and forward, back and forward. Now you might use your feet to push down to rock this pelvis forward and back. Now in men, the pelvis is mostly upright, up and down. And because of that, the sacrum, that's the base of the spine that's shaped a little bit like an arrowhead, fits in there really tight and doesn't move very much. Very, very strong, stable arrangement. But in women, the pelvic bowl is widened at the top rim of those 2 bones, almost more like a platter than a bowl. And because of that, one less ligament holds the sacrum into the pelvis. And because of female hormones, those ligaments are looser. Now rock the pelvis backward and hold so that where the lumbar spine and the top rim of the pelvis, which is really the sacrum on the back, that part of your back is driving into the floor. So if your knees were like a ski slope, right, you'd be making one line from the knees down through the thighs into the core and then into the floor at the low back. Joseph Pilates, some of you heard Pilates, said you're only as old as your spine feels. So yoga really is about moving the spine, stretching out, I'm going to use a technical term, the myelin sheath. Myelin is the fatty substance that covers all the nerves in the body. It insulates them so that the electricity doesn't go out, just like the rubber on an electrical cord. When that myelin sheath gets stuck and connected to the fascia, nerve pathways can't move. Release the spine now. And then just notice any feeling. Let's take these knees side to side. Notice any feeling in the low back and or the sacrum. How you know that it's your sacrum and not your lumbar is, well, first of all, it's lower, and it's usually only on one side of your spine, on your low back, hip area there. There may even be a dimpling in your skin there. So if you ever take a look, that could mean that the sacrum to the ilium, or otherwise known as S sacrum, I ilium, sacroiliac joint, has some sort of dysfunction. Let's cross one ankle over the other knee, and then without using your hands, draw the legs in and out. Now this should wake up your core. Remember those muscles around the waist? I said they should be tense because their job is to support you. The job of the sacrum is to support you when your legs move. It is not to stretch out. So when I said we're going to do sacral stretches, I'm absolutely lying. We're doing sacral strengthening exercises today. We don't really need to stretch out the sacrum. If your sciatic nerve, which runs through there, gets impinged by the piriformis, you might need to stretch it, but believe me, you would know it. Let's leave the foot down. Now I want you to take this top knee and flap it like a butterfly wing. The knee goes in and then out. Now when the knee goes out, that's the piriformis. That's a deep gluteal, let's call it, rotator muscle. You know how we talk about the rotator in the shoulder? We all can picture that rotating. It's the same thing. The piriformis is a deep hip or gluteal rotating. It's rotating the leg bone in the socket. This is going to be important when we do pigeon pose. And so many of us, especially women, love pigeon pose. We're stretching that piriformis and it feels phenomenal. The problem is we do that. We go back to that well so many times. We overstretch the piriformis and it becomes lax. That means it's not holding its shape anymore. Now hold that out. Bring your hand to it and push. At the same time with your knee, pull in. So create pressure. Resist. That should wake up the abdominals, whose job it is to support the ligaments of the low back and that sacral joint. Now do the opposite. Take your hand to the outside of the knee and push your knee into your hand while your hand is doing a bicep curl. You can even move a little bit in and out as long as your outer hip, the piriformis and tensor fasciae latae, and bicep are doing the work here. You can move or not move. You should be able to feel your gluteal and your piriformis by now. Relax. Then grab this knee kind of with both hands and fold it in towards your opposite chest and relax. Take 3 slow breaths. Quiet the waters of the breath and the body. One more breath. And then release. All right, I already feel that. I'm going to show you my sacrum, where the hip and the low back, or the back of that pelvis meet. I feel that. So I have a little bit of dysfunction in that SI. If you don't feel that right there, you're probably fine. We're going to recross the opposite way. And this is where, without using your hands, draw the leg in and out. So what this is doing is waking up the nerves of the abdominals to brace you against the movement of the legs. Your legs are very big and long. And because of that, the muscles around the low waist and the low back and the back of the pelvis really have to work hard to stabilize. If they don't work hard to stabilize, back pain results. So yes, contract your abdominals so that they're tense, taut, and tight. So yes, we want stress in the abdominal musculature, not the digestive system. After 2, we'll put the foot down. Now this is where we take this top knee and flap it in and out, or up and down, like a butterfly wing. Try to figure out what muscles, because when we come to standing, I'm going to ask you to move your piriformis, and you're going to say, well, what's that? So try to figure out now. It's a muscle that runs from the head of the hip bone, the leg, to the low back. And it opens the knee out. It twists the leg out. I'm going to say that a lot today. Twist the leg out and in. See if you can feel. It's a deep muscle. Chances are you can't isolate it, but you can feel there's something gliding and sliding in there. After 2, leave the knee out. Use your hand to push, but resist. So your tricep of this arm is pushing away, and the inner thigh of this top knee is pulling in. All of these movements are to create awareness around the sacrum and the muscles that support the sacrum so that you can move, so that the nerves there are awakened. So more and more use your sensory awareness training. You can call this sensory awareness training. Feel the pose. Don't do the pose. Feel the pose. Now the opposite. Take your hand to the outer knee and push the knee out. Remember your bicep. I should be able to see all these biceps popping up here. Your bicep is bicep curling. Everything that you're doing now and then off the mat is a moment-to-moment negotiation of needs. So what does my hip need right now? It's kind of hard to know, but I do feel that sacrum is sort of twisting, which is why we don't need to specifically twist it. Because when we sit, the sacrum rocks out of the pelvic bowl. That's not good. So we don't need to stretch it more. We need to fuse it back together. We're about to do that. You can add a little bit of movement here, bicep curl, like your leg is a dumbbell that you're trying to curl in. That should really wake up the piriformis and the gluteal. Gluteus maximus in particular. And then release. All right, let's bring the foot to the floor, bring the hands down by the sides, lift the hips up into bridge. Remember that ski slope from the knees down into the core. But now squeeze the low back and purposely squeeze the gluteals. Kind of like up, up, up and hold. Now squeeze the inner thighs a little bit closer together and hold them there. So imagine something between your knees. These moves are so good. Let's say you have unspecified low back pain. I don't know, it just bothered me. I don't know. Getting down on the floor with your spine straight was the first thing. Getting some movement around the hips is the second thing. Training the abdominals is the third thing, and that you keep training abdominals. 2 slow breaths. Remember, you're gently stirring the healing waters of the reservoir of goodness. So everything should feel good. Slowly roll down. Let's grab the strap. Loop it on one foot. Now it doesn't matter whether you actually use the loop at the end or you just drape. Doesn't matter. Whatever you can do is the right thing. Stretch the other leg out. All right, I want you to think about a right angle, an L, right? Your leg is one of those sticks, and then your body's the other one. Your sacrum is laying flat on the floor. It's not twisted, rotated, falling, spiraling. It's flat. So when you have your sacral pain, the sacral kind of unspecified, I don't know how my hips are doing, this sends blood. In yoga, we use the term energy down into that sacrum. Now take that leg out without lifting this other hip bone. Don't let it rock and twist off the floor. So all we're doing is stretching the inner leg and thigh. As you're breathing in and out, don't solve anything. Allow that your body has times when things come together and time when things fall apart. That this is just the life cycle. Nothing's getting solved. We wish, right? We wish. We just put our body back together and that's it. It doesn't work that way. Come back to center. Switch to the other leg. All right, and this leg, because this usually is my leg where the sacrum has some dysfunction, I'm going to purposely pull straight down, as if what I want to do is bring my leg back into the hip socket, as if the triangle of my 2 leg bones and the low back, that makes like a triangle, I'm trying to press that triangle evenly down into the floor. So I'm going to pull down, not pull in. I'm not trying to stretch my hamstring. but straight down. Three breaths. Rehydrating. They say that aging is just the dehydration of the metabolic flow. I'll go with that. That sounds right to me. And one. Take this leg out to the side. Stretching that inner thigh. Remember, the opposite hip bone has to stay down. When we do stretches, right now we are doing a stretch. When we do stretches, what we're really doing is stretching the myelin sheath. That's the fatty covering all over the nerves. If you take a lot of nerves, like your spinal cord, it's just a series of many, many, many nerves connected. It has a thick myelin sheath. And that myelin sheath is super important. It doesn't just keep the energy from escaping. It actually conducts the energy, so it helps you have thoughts. 3 slow breaths. Each breath is hydrating. Not just that myelin sheath, well, that's important, but the metabolic flow. And release that. Let's take that down. When you're ready, roll to a side. And then let's push all the way up. Let's come to hands and knees. All right, my low back, my sacrum, my pelvis, they all feel like, whoa, a lot of clicking and clacking. I have a lot of laxity there. That means I can really flex that. Let's try that same thing. Rock the pelvic bowl forward and back. The same thing. I'm referring to the first thing we did. I remember we were sitting there and I said, rock your pelvis forward and back. Notice it doesn't move quite as much as you thought. Again, this might be a time to look and see. It probably doesn't move quite as much. And the reason it doesn't move quite as much is because they have powerful, strong ligaments around the top of your leg bone and around, they sew, if you will, into that sacrum, remember, which is just that arrow-shaped bone that wedges down into the pelvic bowl. And there's not a lot of movement there. There shouldn't be a lot of movement there. That's not the goal in yoga, to increase your flexibility so that you can get your foot up over your head. I suppose if you're a circus performer, that might be an important thing, but for the rest of us, we just want health. 2 slow breaths. Keep aligning or attuning your mind. And then lift off into downward dog. Your goal in downward dog is evenness. So whatever is stretching, let's say your neck is doing good stretching today. Your ankle should feel that same freedom. So evenness, both hands, both feet. Hands to feet, feet to hands. Heels to hips, hips to head, evenness. 3 breaths. Wiggle the fingers, wiggle the toes. Good, you got this. You got milk. Let's walk the feet forward. All right, my hamstrings are super pulling on the back of the legs here. So I'm going to try rocking my pelvis forward and back. It might not go anywhere, but that's what I'm trying. I'm trying to gain awareness. This is yogic training to tune in to the senses, and moment by moment, I'm negotiating with my body. What does it need? I shouldn't say it, right? It's mine. What do I need, I guess, right? It's not like it's separate, separate from me. Then begin bouncing the knees. You might have to hold on to a chair here. That's okay. That would be fine. Bouncing the knees. Up, down, up, down. Again, what I'm doing is I'm creating like a lubrication. I'm rehydrating because those metabolic flow has slowed down. With the knees bent now, bring your hands to them so that you can rock the pelvis and scoop the belly in and up. So it's all about stability around the top of the hips. I'm going to say stand in Tadasana. I want to train the body to rotate the leg out. So stand on one leg, lift one foot up as much as it needs to so that it is just not on the floor. And then practice turning your leg bone out and back to center. So the leg bone out and back to center. So remember when we had the leg and we were doing the thing with the knee, that butterfly wing? I was trying to train you to turn, rotate the piriformis muscle. It's a deep gluteal muscle. It inserts right at the sits bone, which is the base of the ilium, the base of that pelvic bowl. And you could probably feel it if you dig your finger in there to the sits bone. You can feel it contract, release, contract. So memorize this. Twist the leg bone out, twist the leg bone out, memorize this. 2 more. Let's go to the other leg. So we're just practicing. One leg up. Your hip has to come up a little and twist out, twist out. So take some conscious effort here to connect. Again, you might want to put your fingers on that sits bones to feel, you can feel really the gluteal. The gluteal is more superficial, meaning it's closer to the outside. So you'll feel that. Twist, twist. As you're twisting, see this one for me is much tighter. Make sure your other leg isn't also turning. So just one leg, twist, twist, twist. 3 more. Good, we're gonna go back to the other leg. Now we're gonna practice. I'm gonna turn to the short end of my mat. Lift this first leg, twist it open, hold. You can tell by your foot's turning out almost 45, something like that. Then bend the supporting knee and step that leg back. So the leg behind you now, it's like it's getting ready to move into warrior. In fact, we are. So let's do it again. Come up, turn the leg forward. Twist the leg out, bend the front knee. Shoot this leg behind you, come down. See if you can hover for a second. And then land into warrior 1. Here's a what, Candace? Turn open into warrior 2. Straighten this front leg. Dive your hips. Make sure you get that. Dive your hips into a triangle. And take this top arm and just bring it onto my sacrum, just to remind myself we're working on the sacrum today. It feels like your chest is turning up to the sky, but don't make an issue of that. So just notice that you're trying to not collapse your shoulder down. So whatever open the chest means to you. So this triangle pose opens the hips and strengthens the low back. Good stuff. 2 breaths. Good. You've got this. Bend the front knee. Come up, back and into warrior 1. So front knee bend, hips turn closer to the front, arms reach, shoulder blades pull back and down, back leg strong. And remember, it's rotated out. It's practicing that piriformis movement. Shift forward, balance. Come up, try to hold for a second, and come back to Tadasana. So now lift the other leg, turn it open, bend the front knee, shoot this other leg back and hold. Let's try that again. Come all the way back up. Lift this same leg, turn it open, bend the front knee, shoot the other leg back and hold. Now try to go a little bit further back and hold. And then land into warrior 1. So the other leg is turned open from the hip. Hips are trying to go forward. Sink into both legs. Twist open into warrior 2. That involves spinning the hips. Straighten the front leg. As you do that, lift the back hip up, tip forward, hand to knee. And take the top arm and hide it. But I'm focused now really on that hip. That hip movement is what's gonna liberate that low back so that it can hold itself in place. If you have muscles that are really, really tight and they won't move, then you can't move. Nothing can happen. 3 slow breaths, working on strengthening the sacrum today. Good, so then bend the front knee to push off. Turn back into warrior 1. Remember, front knee bends. Both legs really metabolically active. Lean forward, come up. See if you can balance for a moment. And then like your soccer kicking this leg forward, then it turns back to front and back to Tadasana. All right, I'm gonna invite you to come down into a low squat. Not everybody can or should. So spin your legs out. Bend your knees. I'm gonna grab my blocks. I'm gonna start here and say, how low can I go? I'm gonna play around with these blocks. I could stack them, and that's it for today. That could be it for today. I could walk my feet in closer. I could come up onto my toes. There's another option. I just want you to play around. Now I can go much, much lower, so I'm not feeling much. I need to bring my hips down low to feel a sacral stretch. So this is a stretch in the sacrum. So let's say you're the 1 in 100 people that actually need a sacral stretch. Pregnant ladies need a sacral stretch. There's not that many. There's only specific conditions you need a sacral stretch. But sometimes I find that this really helps me get into the other stretches better. Obviously, if your knees are bad, you can't do this. So you have to find a different way to do this. 2 breaths, if this is working for you. And then crawl your way onto the belly. Let's come around and down. Bring the hands next to the chest so that your elbows look like, well, grasshopper wings, grasshopper legs. Your legs are to become the wings. Squeeze the legs together, push, 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 then lift the legs up. Push with your hands and shoot the chest forward. So legs are squeezing and lengthening. And chest is wiggling forward. All right, so this is kind of the premier low back sacral strengthening exercise. That bridge pose we did before, and this one, which is called locust pose or grasshopper. 3 breaths. And release down. Just rest. Wherever your reservoir is, breath, fluid, kindness. 3. When you're ready, try this again. So hands pushing down, legs squeezing together, legs lengthening and lifting, and the chest moving forward. Shoulders peeling backward. So grasshopper. You should be able to almost feel the muscles and ligaments right there on that sacrum, like weaving together. Pulling, pulling, pulling. So squeezing and holding and pulling together in the sacrum. Not stretching, not twisting. You can do 1 or 2, but focus on the squeezing, the pulling. 2 more breaths. Pull those muscles into a tight fist. And 1. Let's move back into child's pose. Almost always, after you do that clenching, squeezing, you do a little bit of a release. So child's pose is a release. 3. Ujjayi. Let's come back to the back. One more thing before our final stretch. So coming all the way to the back, laying all the way down. You do that so much faster than me. You go all the way down. I'm going to say cross your right ankle over your left ankle. Got that? Right ankle on top. Then put your hands behind your head, like you're holding your head, you know. It's a lazy afternoon. Move your both feet a little bit to the left. Lift them up and tap them over. And then take your right elbow and reach it away from your right ankle. So stretch the whole sheet from your right ankle to your right elbow, that whole side. All right, we're going to stay here for a little bit, breathing. There's one long fabric sheet that really goes around your entire body, but we're just focusing on the part of it that goes from the side of your foot all the way up. It actually goes up over the top of your head, but also goes to that elbow. Picture that sheet lengthening. Remember, your practice is a moment-to-moment negotiation of what your body, what my body, what I need, I guess is the way to say that. The space that we're creating is physical, but you live in that space. Like, if I were to say, who are you and where are you in your body? It's not just one space. It's not just your eyes, for example. It's not just your heart. We all point to our chest. Here I am. We reside in every cell of the body, evenly. 2 slow breaths. So create the space on the side, waist right here, for you to reside. Let's try the other side. So unwind, left over right. Move the feet to the right. Pull the left elbow up. So it's okay to bend to bow. Remember, Joseph Pilates said you're as old as your spine feels. In yoga, what we say is that there's a sushumna flow of prana. A little bit harder to say it that way, isn't it? That there's a waterfall or a main channel. And the flow in that channel dictates the experience you have. And in yoga, we're bringing all of that experience into the oneness of absorption, into the goodness. So we're creating a space that micro connects all of that. 3 slow breaths. I really want you to get the lengthening. That's why we're holding this one. I don't want to say this is an easy pose. I don't like to use that terminology. But this is a pose that you can probably hold without a lot of muscular effort. Slow inhale, exhale. And then drag your knees into your chest. The lumbar spine and the sacral spine obviously are very close. You can't just separate what. So we did work the lumbar spine today too. Remember, the poses to remember to do are to lift the hips into bridge. Wouldn't be bad to do that right now. Give some evenness to the front and the back. And that locust grasshopper pose, and even hands and knees. A little twisting the hips right and left. A little twisting the hips right and left. Not over twisting and not locking your spine in a twist. and only sit for short periods of time. Now in your time, come to Shavasana. As you close your eyes and enter into the space that you have created, I want you to begin the process of being, not doing. As you inhale now, choose to take in the good. As you exhale, allow it to fall apart. As you inhale, choose to take in the good. As you exhale, allow it to fall apart. Begin to shift onto your side. Inhale and exhale. When you're ready now, open your eyes. Push up and off the floor. So when you come back to a vertical position, train the low back to rock a little bit forward by putting your hands behind you and giving your low back a little rock forward, so that the back of your pants, like you're lifting that up to keep you holding up and straight. Good. Hold that. Bring your hands together at your heart. Funnel your thumbs into that infinite good, that reservoir that we all have here. Inhale, circle and stretch up. Exhale and circle back. I honor you and I thank you for joining me here today. Namaste.